Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. We're about to blues. At least talk about the blues. And a few other things. If you rock with me, let me know if you can hear me. What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Blues people, good people, all people. It is Lamar Jack Burley. This is so I usually break this down every so often. So let me just start off with this, just to be clear. Jack Dapper Blues Heritage Preservation Foundation is a non for profit private foundation where our mission is to raise cultural awareness and preserve African American traditional music and the Black experience. We focus on traditional arts, Black folk narrative. I just got a text. Traditional art, Black folk narrative, oral histories, and the ethnographic documentation of how all these things kind of coexist, the Black experience, the Black expression, whether you're African American, whether you're indigenous or Amerindian, if you're considered Black on the Americas, the African American folklore. Am I pointing to the right place? It's up here somewhere. There it is. The African American folklorist is a project that comes out of the private foundation. It is a magazine, it is a podcast, a radio segment. We are getting more traction, on the website, and we're working on a documentary. We're in post production for a documentary. They are of the same cloth because they all come from the Jack Dapper Blues Heritage Preservation Foundation. I just feel that it's important that I start us off with this information, right? However, they come from the foundation, but the difference is Jack Dapper Blues Radio is more my work as an folklorist, as an ethnographer, ethnomusicologist, things like this. Jack Dapper Blues, that's what that is. The African American folklorist is where we galvanize people of the independent scholar, community scholar, academic scholar, and the private sector, if you will, scholar, or public sector, if you will, scholar. And everyone chimes in and shares the stories they find of African American culture, tradition, heritage. So, with that being said, as you see the website right there, you can go to the African American Folklorist website to submit to be able to become a either contributing writer, or if you have a specific project that you're working on, writing, uh podcast, whatever, however you're doing your documentation. And well, I'll get to that in a second. You can go to that website and submit. Make sure you also subscribe to our mailing list, as well as both YouTube pages, the Jack Dapper Blues YouTube page, as well as the African American Folklorist YouTube page. And for perks and to get the actual physical magazine, which I'll probably grab and show you guys after a bit, join our Patreon, and then you will be able to get that. Okay. So today, with that being said, today we're talking about the Green Book, blues, and Kentucky. A particular region of Kentucky, though, a particular city, a particular neighborhood, a particular community. A lot of you who I either work with partnered with, affiliated with, or that know my work, or just friends of mine, whether personal friends, social media friends, what have you, know that my family and I have moved to Kentucky. And a lot of my work, outside of the things that I do in the blues and in the African American folklore section, meaning the Black Indian, the Black stories, the narratives, and things of this nature, I've been focused on learning, studying, engaging, working with. Hopefully, I'm doing a good job with the Black communities of the region I'm in, of Kentucky, of the city I'm in, of Kentucky. And you know, there's a lot of blues in Kentucky, first and foremost, but there is a lot of rich traditions and heritage of what I like to call the Black folk narrative that lives here, that's been cultivated here. Um, so if you think about the location of Kentucky, right, we're dead smack in the middle of Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Tennessee, Ohio, Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, the Mississippi run by Mississippi River, Ohio River. So we're and I'm saying we, I'm an implant, right? But we are like the middle of the movement of Black culture, right? So what happens is a lot moves in and out, but a lot gets cultivated, and then it goes out into these different spaces, right? So there's just a lot of great things happening, and that has happened that I'm working to document. I'm not the only one, but for this platform, and again, those who are listening or will listen, I implore you to, if you're working on a oral history project, some sort of documentation, or just writing about the Black story, tradition, and etc. of Kentucky, make sure you contact me. Contact me at jackedapplebluesradio.tv. You can go straight to the African American Folklorist.com and submit, and you can follow the magazine on Twitter at AAF Newspaper. You can follow me on Twitter at Jack Pearly on Twitter. Okay. So now getting back to the particular space where I'm at, and I've been able to, since I've been here, speak to so many wonderful official and just really great folks of Bowling Green, Kentucky, of Warren County for that matter. And I'm just grateful to the amount of people that opened their arms to me and my family and allowed us to not only implant and move, but for me to be able to help them document. And this is something I want to say as a folklorist, as an ethnographer, one of the things, and what I'm happy to say, because again, those of you who know me, one of my biggest pet peeves was how these stories were conveyed, how they were portrayed, how the people were portrayed, and how the documentors inserted themselves in, right? And did it in a way as if they discovered something and discovered somebody that was long lost in some way off place. And that's really not how this thing works. And I hope that's not what I present, because again, and this goes back to the word obscure. I'm going to get to what we're going to talk about today. But I have to say this goes back to the word obscure, because obscure gives the sentiment that I found you. That's like the Columbus mindset. right? And I don't even think he made it to these shores. You could go back and check my you can call it an interview. My interview with Phoenix Moon. She says Columbus didn't even make it to our shores. So now we have a attitude predicated off of a false narrative that was going on in this uh discipline. Not so much anymore. A lot of people are working to change that narrative amongst others. So now with that being said, and I didn't play no music to start this off, but that's all right because I got a couple of surprises for you about what we're talking about today. So we're talking about the Green Book, the Blues, and Kentucky. Uh, are you aware of what the Green Book is? I think most of you are. I don't like to assume. So I will just share it in the event. But if you do know what it is, please do not take offense, okay? The Green Book was actually a book put together, and I forget the guy's name and everything, but it's a book put together for safe travel and passage for Black folk during a particular time, during Jim Crow. So in this book, you would find restaurants that you could eat at, hotels. I don't think they were called bed and breakfasts at that time, but lodges, places where you could stay, maneuver, get gas, and do things safely because you had to drive through a lot of sundown towns. So this is what the Green Book was. And I will also say that some are of the mindset that the Green Book was a middle class to upper class uh, Black tool because a lot of the low to no African Americans weren't traveling like that or weren't accessible to cars like that in some cases, right? But that's neither here nor there at the moment. So this is what the Green Book is. The Blues, I should hope I don't have to explain that to those of you who follow me and watch me often, right? But just an event. The Blues is the oral documentation of the Black experience on the Americas, the melanated experience on the Americas. We've been called BIPOC now, and when I say we, all of the folk that's considered of color is BIPOC. But that's what the Blues is. It is the oral documentation of the Black experience and existence on the Americas and Kentucky. And when we speak about Kentucky, we're speaking specifically about Bowling Green, Kentucky. Now, what I'm about to talk about, you can go to the WKU Public Radio and or NPR one site and hear a segment I did about the gentleman I'm about to discuss. And I'm also trying to interview, I believe, his nephew or great nephew when we could get that together so we could dive more into everything that I'm about to discuss with you all tonight. Now, and mind you, you might have been looking for me to come on at 5 p.m. Central Time, but it's Sunday, so just ride along and enjoy yourselves. So now, with that being said, I want to talk about Porter Parish Granger, Green Book Blues in Kentucky. And we're going to get to why these are the actual, or this is the actual title. These three not statements, words. The Green Book, the Blues, and Kentucky. Now, Porter Parish Granger was born in Kentucky, Bowling Green, they say, in 1891. His father, James N. Granger, and his mother, Pearl Holmes. Okay. Now, James had a sister named Maddie Granger. In the 1900 census, it's listed that Porter, his sister Ashula, and I believe another sibling, lives with James Covington and Maddie Granger. Now, remember, Maddie is Porter's aunt. Okay, Maddie is Porter's aunt. Her husband is James Covington, so she becomes Maddie Granger Covington. By 1908, Porter and his sister Ashula were living with James and Maddie at a house James built in Bowling Green on State Street. And this house is the Southern Queen. You know, I think I need to bring that up because what I ended up doing was I made are they gonna let me do it? I hope I don't mess up the broadcast by trying to insert this right now. But Southern Queen is very important, okay, to this story. But before we get to that, I think I'm okay. No, I didn't. Look at this. Because I just want to bring this up while I'm talking to y'all. So now, by 1916, Porter Parish Granger, who this is about, I guess you could say his professional music career begins in 1916. Okay. So before we go any deeper into his professional career, we want to talk about this house right there, the Southern Queen Hotel. Why do we want to talk about the Southern Queen Hotel? And mind you, for those of you that's riding with me, please don't be afraid to chime in if you know anything. Ask questions. I may have the answers right now. I'm still digging. I'm still I don't want to say investigating because this is not journalism. I'm just working to help preserve the oral story and disseminate it, transmit it to those who may have not heard, because there are people here already that are connected to the family, that are friends of the family, that grew up here, that are actually doing the work, which is what I really love. Because I believe in owning your narrative, right? So I just love that. So I'm not presenting this as I found this, and I have to keep making that disclaimer because of some things that happened in the past, not now. I just like to separate myself from that. So now when we get back to the Southern Queen, let me show this house again. Southern Queen is historic for many, many reasons. So now this is where the Green Book comes in, because the Southern Queen was listed in the Green Book, right? It was a hotel, but people lived there, right? Maddie, her husband James, they had a daughter, um, and the Southern Queen also served lunch to the students that attended the school that was across the street. That was an all-black school. The Southern Queen was listed in the Green Book because during the days of Jim Crow and the Chitlin Circuit, you have folks like Ray Charles, B.B. King, Ike and Tina Turner, and I can name many more. Thank you. Thank you. I can name many more that came through here and performed at what's known as the Quonset Hut. So when they came here, and they hung out in the other locations that were black owned, because the Southern Queen was in a black location, a black neighborhood known as Shake Rag. Now, Shake Rag has a great story. We're not going to get too deep into the entire story of Shake Rag, but that's part of this as well. So Southern Queen has all kinds of black musicians, blues musicians coming in and out. And this is where Porter Granger grows up. Again, giving you small bits and pieces as I learn more. And I will be, hopefully, I spoke to Mr. Al Moses, and we're going to schedule something and I can interview him and I hope to give you guys an even more detailed version because this is very important, particularly for me to the blues story, but even more so to the Black intellectual story, to the Black resilience story, and be on the lookout because, me and my team shot last summer what I like to call right now Black Bowl documentary, what I like to call right now Black Bowling Green, story of resilient people because some of the stories that I've collected and heard, not even just collected, but just heard in daily conversations when I'm asking questions or when people who do the work that live here share with me, man. Anyway, so the Southern Queen is a historical landmark because of the people that came out of there who lived there and the role it played in this community. And I told you some of the people who were staying there that were blues musicians traveling. Now, I shared with you that Porter lived there, and you're probably like, who is Porter Parish Granger? If you are a true blues historian, you know who Porter Parish Granger is. If you are not, then just take a ride and you're going to find out. But I did mention his sister was there with him, and his sister married Joseph Williams, and they had a child called Dolores Williams Moses. Miss Dolores, when she became Miss Moses, married Ozzie Alfred Moses, or better known in the community, from what I've gathered, as O.A. Moses. Now, the reason why this family is important, not just because they ran this hotel, but they played a significant part in the educational system of Black Bowling Green because they worked in the school. Miss Dolores was the first librarian for Black folk. She went to Fisk. Remember last week we had a Fisk alumni on. I believe a music teacher, because it was quite a few of them that were working to this capacity, right? So this is Porter's start. This is his family, his offspring, and to my understanding, they're all doing well. It was set up, even to this day. My point, right? And again, you can go check my Saturday morning. Matter of fact, just to bring it back around to why I don't like the term obscure, because this home, this community, and the people of Black Bowling Green were making and still are making significant contributions to American history, Kentucky history, Black history, right? And like I said, I don't like the term obscure because because you may not know about some of the people that I'm mentioning or even the location that I'm talking about. I've come to find out that the folks of this town past and present, have made and are still making significant and crucial history. Okay, you could check out what just passed last Saturday's African American folklore segment that aired on WKU Public Radio and NPR nationally. It'll be up on the website this week. I interviewed, or I shared the story rather, of a war hero and a staple to Black Bowling Green's community, Mr. Charles Robinson, who has a tremendous story. So now back to Porter Parish Granger. Matter of fact, before I even get into it, let's play this.
Oh, I know that big house too. Oh, that's playing for me. Not a no good man. He can't even change his side. I got a no good man. He can't even change his side. He loves the jail so well. He stays in jail all the time.
Now, I believe a lot of you know who that is if you're of the blues community, if you're a blues historian, if you're a folklorist who has followed the blues ethnomusicologist or ethnographer, right? That was Mamie Smith. Why is Mamie Smith important? Because she is the first person, for that matter, to go platinum. Her song Crazy Blues, recorded at the turn of the century, was a big hit. And so I'm not going to get into her story too much, but if you notice, there was a man at the, or well, for me, left side of the screen on the piano. That was Porter Parish Granger, who comes from Bowling Green and lived in the Southern Queen, which is a Green Book listed stop, where all the blues musicians went to stay. So Porter Parish Granger wrote for her, and that was Jailhouse Blues. He wrote and performed for her. He wrote and performed with people like Fats Domino, Fat Waller, Bessie Smith. There was a play that Bessie Smith was working on, Mississippi Blues, I believe it's called. And Porter Parish Granger did the score and played behind her. He also, if you fast forward, did the score for a Zora Neale Hurston play, right? Now, Zora Neale Hurston, as you all know, or should know for that matter, Zora Neale Hurston was deeply rooted in Black expression, particularly of the South, and during the Renaissance of the North. And in 1924, Porter Parish Granger was living in New York and with a partner by the name of Robert Ricketts. I believe he met him in Louisville or in Chicago, but they created what's called Granger and Ricketts, a publishing company. So Porter Parish Granger was a composer. He did some singing, did a lot of writing, and a lot of composing. And he's done a lot of, and they were located, the office was located on 1547 Broadway. Why does that street sound familiar? Because that's close to the original New Amsterdam Musical Association before it moved to Harlem. I don't fully remember the number it was on, but that's neither here nor there. Now, the musical that he was working on with, it wasn't called Mississippi Blues, forgive me. It was called Mississippi Days. And it was in 1928 that he worked on this with Bessie Smith. He was the musical director, he was the composer, he was the arranger of this particular play. Right? So when you hear Porter Parish Granger, this is not a he's someone who was deeply rooted into the blues world, particularly what some of you guys like to call the classic blues era. And classic blues era is the era where you have the women of the blues fronting the big bands in some cases and the piano bands in other cases. He's done songs with yes, I'm looking at my notes. How dare you question me? I have it written down here somewhere because I forget this woman's name and I love her music so much. You know what? While I get to, I just found it. Ethel Waters, Edna Hicks. He worked with Duke Ellington. I believe he did the Duke in Harlem with Duke Ellington, right? And there's another woman that I love her voice so much I can't think of. But you know, brother comes out of a historically Black home that has such a significant contribution on the Black community and city and the Black folks of traveling of the region. And then he has a publishing company, and then he goes on to write many songs. His catalog is long, right? He has a really deep catalog of compositions. He did some singing as well, you know, and I don't want to give too much away because I still plan on sitting down with his nephew or great nephew and getting some information about the gentleman because, like John Wesley work, he's made vital and crucial contributions to Black folk narrative, Black folklore, Black folk life, Black traditional music, and all of the above. Let's take a look at this next song that he also.
Miss Miranda Jackson had a loving man that the ladies all would rave about. He was such another guy, his dapper Dan. Miss Miranda shortly found it out when he took a pleasure trip to Tennessee. Miss Miranda couldn't help but cry. Jealousy would fret her, so she wrote a letter. This is what she told him not to cry. Daddy, don't you trifle on me while you're down in Tennessee. I just bought a gas, it's an automatic. Now you know exactly what your mama's driving at. Daddy, don't you trifle on me, 'cause I'm like a bumblebee. You might ignore me while I was around, but you'll know I'm on you when I sit down. Mama's blue as she can be, so Daddy, don't you trifle on me. Every day, in every way, I think much more of you. If some gal took you, I'll say, I don't know what I'd do. Winter, fall, or summertime, to me it matters not. I'd gladly give you my last dime or anything I've got. But, Daddy, don't you trifle on me. You better jump into the blue sea. Here is my advice, and I'm talking nice. Don't you let me catch you walking with the same gal twice. Daddy, don't you trifle on me. Let your loving mama, please. Now keep away from me if you just must fight. If I catch you cheating, you'll sure get hurt. Mama's true as she can be. So, Daddy, don't you trifle on me.
Now, you know, you may have saw two names under the vocalist name, right? And that is something common in those days, because you would have a singer, actually probably common now, but you have I would say probably this is common now, but you have a singer back then who would have 3 or 4 different aliases, so she or she'd be able to sing on these different records and hopefully get paid, right? And I say hopefully because in some cases they did get paid. In other instances, because it's really, if you're in the contract and they got the name, well, they just put another name on there, if they're trying to brand something else. But there's different reasons for that, but that's how that went back there. But that was Porter Parish Granger on the guitar. So there's other women that he's done music with, like Victoria Spivey, right? And Tain't Nobody's Business, sang by Billie Holiday, was written by Porter Parish Granger. I kind of like this show. I have the African American folklore, so this is like a blues show, ain't it? No, because I think what I wish I had some more blues to play that was under Porter Parish, because he has such a great catalog. I think I may come back on here, well, not tonight, but next week. We'll see, we'll see, we'll see. But I just wanted to put that out there as I continue to learn and interview and gather and collect information and hopefully help those who's been doing it and his family. Like I said, his nephew, a great nephew, has all the information. So it's not like I said, this obscure crap, and I hate to keep bringing that up, but his peoples revere him and has his information. So it's not. When I say collecting or documenting, I'm just doing my part to hopefully expose a part of our story, the collective, to those who aren't aware, right? But Porter Parish Granger has made a significant contribution, and his people and his people who know about him. The Southern Queen has made tremendous contribution, and folk know about it, you know. But for those who don't, I hope you appreciate being introduced to it and look it up, okay, and find out about other Black narratives that you may not be familiar with, but it doesn't mean it's obscure. And if you have something that you know about and need a place to present it, let it live, or publish it, remember, like I said in the beginning of the broadcast, go to the AfricanAmericanFolklorist.com to submit, or you can reach out to me directly via email or whatever have you. Let me know what you have and we can make something happen. All right. So just enjoy the rest of your evening. And next week, I'll be back with some more African American folklore and Jack Dabba Blues. You heard me. Have a good night, great folk. I think I want to end on Mamie. Which one? Mamie Smith, right?